and we are very, very happy. And we want to welcome you, Liz, again, and we can't wait to get started. So I will give everything over to you now.
Great, thank you so much, Sharonda. Hey, everybody, it's so good to see so many familiar faces. I'm really excited. We're going to be exploring pollinators today. And if you came last year to my pollinator session, this is going to be different, new activities, like same idea. We love our pollinators. We want to talk about them and figure out why they're important. But I've got some different activities for you that hopefully will help you get rolling with some pollinator love with your young people. So let me share my screen here. There we go. Okay, so here we go. Talking about pollinator power. We're gonna try to go through these different activities. So first, I want you to put your thinking cap on because we're gonna brainstorm here in just a minute. Why are pollinators important? Then we're gonna go through these different activities. I'm gonna do a smoothie demonstration. We're gonna make some garden observations. We're gonna play a game that we call the nectar gathering game. Kind of another game we're gonna call smell and tell, and then habitat tag. And finally, we're gonna wrap it all up and you guys are gonna plan your own pollinator garden, okay? So just like anytime I do a workshop, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat box and we'll get to them. So as we're going through, just throw out some things that you're thinking about, including this very first one, which is why are pollinators important? So we're gonna frame this particularly right now about what are your favorite fruits and vegetables. So can you, in the chat box, throw out to me, what are some of your favorite fruits and vegetables? Anybody want to throw out some favorite vegetables? Apples. Thank you, Mia. Thank you, Caroline. Strawberries. Okay, so I was trying to do this as like a little interactive thing where I see we've got strawberries, we've got apples, we've got green beans, blueberries, some strawberries, more strawberries, cucumbers. I totally didn't get to doing my vegetables, but here we can put them on here. So we're gonna say, in addition, we've got green beans, cucumbers, pineapple. Oh, I totally have a pineapple. Let's grab that, move that over here. Strawberries, kiwi. Thank you for saying these things that are over here on the side. We've got corn. You guys, you got it. So what I love about this, especially with your kids, if you do felt boards or if you do anything with manipulatables, like how cool would it be to have all of these different pictures, maybe laminated on your board where they can pick some of their favorite things that they love. And then you can figure out what are the different fruits and vegetables that we are so grateful that we love to eat and grateful to eat, but that pollinators in particular, mostly bees, play a role in making it happen. So if you think about it, the way that's happening is we've got these different fruits and vegetables that flower, right? And we've got these different pollinators that come, they're gathering nectar, gathering pollen, and through that process, they're pollinating those plants, and that's what we get. So we know that pollinators are important in our food production. We know that they give us direct products like honey. We know that they play a role in the ecosystem in terms of ecosystem health and indicators of that ecosystem health. And we also know that many of our pollinator populations are declining because of habitat loss, of different maybe chemical practices. And so thinking about what's our role as early childcare educators, how can we get our young people early thinking about pollinators, how important they are, and not to be afraid, but to be aware and excited about them. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. I really thought this activity might be a little bit better, but you get the idea, don't you? I didn't want to drag you one more time to a Jamboard because we'll do that at the end. Here's a list that I have of some of the different, I know it's super tiny, but I can send this to you. So it's a list of different plants and then what kind of pollinator pollinates them. So if you were here last year, we did this lunchbox activity where we pulled out the things in our lunchbox and we were looking at what in our lunchbox was something that a pollinator pollinated. And so making that connection. So this is sort of all different sort of foods, all different types of pollinators. But like I was telling Sharonda and Mia before we got started, I was really excited because this is the other half of my lunch today. I always think that one of the best ways that we can get our kids excited about how pollinators help in food production is by actually eating the food. And what's better than a smoothie? Because I'm sure a lot of you already make smoothies. So I'm going to kind of do that in front of you. So I've got my blender container here. And then I'm a big fan of just rummaging around to see what I have in my refrigerator or in the pantry to see what I can put in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add whatever you might have that pollinators help produce. Okay, so I've got a bunch of grapes. Okay, I'm going to add my grapes in here. I've got some winter berries. If you go to the farmer's market right now, some of our growers are producing strawberries under high tunnels and they are so tasty. Some mango from Costco, so I'm going to add that. Use my spatula so you don't see me using my grubby hands. I also have my frozen bananas, right? Because I can never eat the whole banana thing in time. So I'm going to put that in there. I also have some blackberry, like just frozen blackberry juice. And so these are from the blackberries in my garden. And what we did was we just strained them through a strainer to get all of those big seeds out that always get caught in your teeth. So I got blackberries in there. I have a few apples. Usually my smoothies are not this fancy, but I was trying to work it for you guys. And then I also have an orange chew that was about ready to be shriveled. And I'm going to add my honey because we love our honey that our bees give us. I think it's such a good natural sweetener and it makes that direct connection to the product that honeybees in particular can give us. So I've got all of this stuff and then I'm going to add my water. And if you are thinking about, little hands and what they can do, you might be able to, I'm sure a lot of you have some of those maybe nylon knives that some of your pre-K kids can cut the tops off of strawberries. We can have kids that are peeling the bananas. So think about the different role that the kids can play. I'm not sure of your COVID recommendation. So maybe this is a non-COVID activity or something that they do at home with their families, but thinking about what role they can play in adding all of this. Maybe for our younger ones, they're just adding the fruit right to here, and then we're going to blend it up. And that's all there is to it. You guys know how to make a smoothie. Sometimes we'll add yogurt, and you can make the connection about how cows are on pasture land, and in those pastures, we've got bees that are pollinating. All right, let's see. I don't know if you really want to see me make it, but I'm going to crank it up here. Give me just a minute. All right. And there we go. We've got our smoothie. So our pollinator smoothie, right? And so who doesn't love to think about how we can celebrate those pollinators by having something tasty? So now I've got the second half of my lunch and I'm going to get to that when we are all done here. So think about what other ways might you incorporate those fruits and vegetables that require pollination that you can then make some healthy snacks from. So pollinator smoothies, getting kids pumped. It would have been way better if we could do this, together, but you get the idea that it's something easy and fun to celebrate. Okay, so now let's go make my screen big. And I've got a question for you. So let's go here. So I have a question for you. Give me a thumbs up if you love bees. Maybe give me a thumbs down, not because you don't like them, but if maybe you're just a little bit nervous about them. Anybody want to throw out some thumbs up or thumbs down? Like it? You can maybe do some appreciating, some wows. All right. Well, I'm going to play you just this little video. And what I want you to do is, sorry, it's like not great quality. But I want you to unmic yourself, or put in the chat box, what kind of things are you noticing on this video? This was a pre-COVID video, by the way, so we now know a lot better how to take better videos. But did anybody notice anything while we were watching that? What were we seeing flying around? White flowers, bees? Definitely. So if I'm just gonna play, oh, I went to the next page. Hold on. Let me play this again real quick. And I want you to notice there's a big bumblebee here. We see all of this without trying to get too dizzy. We see more bumblebees, 2 bumblebees. I see some, a fly up here, a bee fly. I see some little honeybees down here where my cursor is. And so anyways, this is one of the things that I think that we can do the most of to really kind of encourage that curiosity and wonder about our pollinating friends. Just getting young people to take a little breath and to see what they can find out in the garden. So are there any pollinators out in the garden? If there's not any pollinators, then what can we do about it? And we'll talk later about building a pollinator garden. But you might try to get your young people to count as many pollinators as they can see. And this is a bush that's in our J.C. Ralston Arboretum. It's a sarissa, and there's all these tiny little white flowers like Joanne mentioned in the chat box. And it's just amazing to me that we can see how many pollinators. So trying to do a count, but then maybe thinking about what about if we go counting in the morning? Is it different than the afternoon? And so just thinking about ways that you can encourage this practice of observation with your kids and just getting them to notice these things. So that's one of my favorite things, because then on this page, so this video on the left, we were at my kids' school just running around on the track, and I noticed all of these little mounds that almost look like little tiny ant mounds, and this is happening right now, although this video is like a couple years old. But look at what I found just by noticing. Again, I'm so sorry for my video quality, but do you see this little friend right here? So I was so surprised. I walked over there thinking that I was gonna just see a bunch of ants on sort of this bare hill under a bunch of Bradford pears, which smell really bad but look really pretty right now. And what I found were all of our native mining bees. So these are it's a solitary native bee, and it's gregarious, so they live by themselves, but they live amongst a bunch of other mining bees, and they all have these individual nests. And so it was so cool. You would see the bees like flying around trying to find their nest, and they would go into their nest and begin to dig it out further, or bring back provisions for the larvae that were inside. So I was like, how cool that if you just don't take the time to kind of pause and be interested in the things around you, then I'm pretty sure a lot of people miss this every day. So anyway, so cool. So those are called mining bees. Adrenid is the genus if you're super into it. And then we've got other cool bees like this one. This is a leafcutter bee. And I'm just going to play a little bit of this. And here, I'll kind of just mute it. So leafcutter bees are another native solitary bee, and they will actually cut leaves, they'll cut petals, and they use that to line the inside of their nest. And so if you've ever seen the inside of a leafcutter nest, sometimes they are just gorgeous with all of these different colors of dried petals and dried leaves. And they use that as a way to create their nest so that they can lay their eggs and have their larvae hatch and a new generation emerge. And so I've never seen a leafcutter bee in my garden, but last year, I can't remember if I've told y'all, but I have a bunch of rotten logs in my backyard, and I love it because beetles will burrow in the wood. And a lot of times in those old beetle burrows, what I will get are some bees that are called algochloras, and they are bright blue, some are bright green, and it's just awesome. And so anyways, just thinking about if I can say anything that you could do with your young people, really encourage this practice of observation. Okay, so with that, I know so many of you know what the different kinds of pollinators are, but we are going to do a super fast drive-by of all kinds of different pollinators. I tend to talk about bees a lot because bees are some of our most critical and significant pollinators in terms of agriculture production and in our garden. We're going to see lots of bumblebees and honeybees, sometimes carpenter bees, but that there are a lot of different sort of broad categories. So moths tend to be, this is a hummingbird moth, it's a daytime moth, but a lot of our nighttime moths are big pollinators for our garden flowers and native flowers. Butterflies are such a great gateway into loving pollinators. They're so big and so beautiful. Last year, we talked about raising butterflies as a great way to engage your kids into understanding the role of pollinators. Honeybees are not a native bee. They're from Europe, but we love them because we can move them around commercially and bring them to different farms, but they also give us honey. And so honeybees are a big pollinator in agriculture. Carpenter bees, even though they might drive us crazy if they're trying to go into our deck or our fence, they are a really important pollinator. And my dog tries to chase after them, which is really fun to watch. But if they are chewing on your wood, they're trying to make a nest. And so you might think about how could you make a wood pile that would attract those carpenter bees away from your deck. Bumblebees are some of my favorite. The mining bee, this was the type of bee that I just showed you that was digging in that soil to make its nest in the ground. There's alkali bees, which are native to the Southwest, mason bees, which are important for orchards. We'll see a kind of bee called sunflower bee or Melissoides, and it is awesome to identify. And then we've got these other critters that, like wasps, which we might think are a nuisance, but actually play a great role in pollination and also in parasitizing bugs, which is really cool and another topic. Ants can play a role in pollination, so can hummingbirds. And there are flies like called hoverflies or syrphid flies or bee flies, different kinds that will also pollinate. And then sometimes we have our beetles that will play a role in pollination, as well as water and wind, but we can't really control those mechanisms, but that is also a way that plants reproduce. So having that in mind, right, that we know there are these different kinds of pollinators, we're gonna refocus on honeybees in particular. And this is an activity that is part of one of our 4-H curriculum that is free to you through your local 4-H agent. We can talk more about that at the end. But this is a fun game to think about what pollinators are doing in the garden and then how hard they work to be able to get it done. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And if you guys want to play along, you can do this. We could race each other if you wanted to, but essentially what you're going to do is you're going to have, depending on your class, you can have teams, you can have kids do this individually. You can adapt it for whatever your situation is, but you're going to have 2 cups. So 1 cup, fill it with some water. Okay. And then on the other cup, this is going to be the empty cup. Okay. This cup with your water, this is your nectar water. Okay. So sometimes we will put a picture of a flower on here, so kids remember that this is the nectar, the flower that gives nectar. And then this one is the hive. And so what you're going to do is you are going to be a bee, and you are going to have, sometimes we actually have bee puppets, but I was doing this from home and I didn't have a chance to go get my bee puppet, but you could put your bee puppet on your hand, and you're going to have kids go from the nectar water, and you're going to gather nectar water and you're going to bring it to your hive cup. Okay. Does that make sense? And so we do this in a variety of ways. Whatever you have is what you can use. I love little pipettes if you have pipettes. But if you don't, you can use a turkey baster. So you might be wary of where you do this. Might be better as an outside activity. I've used a little medicine dropper, like the little plunger kind that you can open and close. I've got a little booger sucker. I thought that would be a fun one to do. And if you really want to try something that you might have a lot of some straws where you would suck up some water and then just put your finger on there to hold it. And so here's what you're gonna do. I'm gonna see if you can see this. Basically, let's see. I've got my chair here, okay? And I put my water here. And then maybe off the screen, what I would do is I would put this cup a little bit farther away. So I don't know if you can see that. I'm putting it right here on the edge of the piano. And for your young people, you might place it far away if you're trying to get some energy out. And remember, you can have multiple teams going at a time. So you could have multiple cups, okay? I'm gonna use the booger sucker because I think it's really fun. And so what you're gonna do is you are going to like maybe set a timer, say on your marks, get set, go. And you're gonna try to grab some water from here. This booger sucker doesn't, and then run it over here and then drop it off. And you wanna see how much nectar you can gather in a certain amount of time. And you might set that time at like 30 seconds, a minute, depending on how many kids you have doing it. And so then in the end, what you end up with is a lot of cups full of water. I feel kind of winded just from doing that and not running at all. But what your kids are gonna find out, especially if you have something that doesn't have very much volume, is that it's a lot of work to empty this cup of nectar all the way into the hive. And so the idea behind it is getting them to understand how hardworking our pollinators are, is that they're going to these flowers to gather nectar because they need that as a food. They also go and they're gathering and they take that nectar and they turn that into the honey in the hive, okay? So it kind of gives them an opportunity to understand a little bit about the behavior of these honeybees. I'm so out of breath, you guys. I don't know why. All right, let's go back to here. And so anyways, so that's the nectar gathering game. And I just think it's a lot of fun because I love little people running hard, working hard. And usually what we love to do is we will, after we do our nectar gathering game, then we're gonna do our honey tasting. So we've worked really hard as a bee, and now let's come back and taste some of the honey as a reward for our efforts, which is what the bees make when they gather all that nectar. Okay, does that kind of make sense? Just for like your own kind of knowledge is when bees in particular are going to the flowers, they're collecting nectar, but they also additionally forage for pollen. Pollen gives them protein that the developing baby bees, baby bee larva can eat. And then that nectar turns into that sugar, which has a carbohydrate. So that's just a part of their diet is what they're doing. Anyways, taste some honey. I've got some in my smoothie. So you could maybe do the smoothie after this too. All right. All right, smell and tell. So can anyone tell me in the chat box what body part of an insect, whether it's a butterfly, a bee, or a moth, what part helps them smell? Does anybody know that? Thank you, Tanisha. An antenna, absolutely. And so bees in particular, whether they're honeybees or whether they're one of the native bees, they have a lot of pheromones that are basically chemical smells that come off the bees' bodies that then have different messages, okay? So let's think about, for example, in a honeybee hive has a queen bee, right? This one reproductive female that basically manages a hive of sterile females and a few male drones, okay? And so what she does is she is often giving either like volatile airborne pheromones, and she's also giving those pheromones through like food. So she'll put pheromones into some of like her food, and they say different things. So in some of the worker bees, the sterile female bees, they also give off signals. So if you are, say example, a guard bee, and you have a wasp or you have a bee from another hive trying to come into your colony, then you let off this smell that smells like bananas. And the bananas are basically a warning pheromone saying, everybody come to the front, like all ranks are needed, we're under attack. And that's why if you have one bee that stings you, a whole bunch of other ones will try to come because they're giving off this pheromone of like, attacker, attacker, attacker. So this activity is smell and tell, kind of reenacts that. So what you're going to do, if any of you gather these, grab your cotton ball, okay? And in my case, I have a cotton ball, and then I also had a medicine cup. A lot of you just need some little cup to be able to hold your cotton ball. If you have old film canisters, which like now nobody uses film, so you can actually order them, but some little container that will hold your cotton ball. And in this case, I'm going to do 2 different ones. All right. And actually, so you would do basically have as many cotton balls as you had kids that you were going to do this activity with. So in this one, I'm going to put a little bit of just vanilla extract. Okay. You know your kids, so you know to be mindful of any allergens. So I just had almond extract, but I don't know if this is an allergen, like for kids that have nut allergies, but you might, but think about that. So say, so now what you can do is you can smell this, right? And I can smell that it's a little bit, has that vanilla flavor. And you might do mint extract, banana extract, raspberry extract, all those different kinds of lemon extract is another good one. And so, and then this one, I can smell that like very distinct almond smell, which it really smells like cherries to me, or like that cherry soap that you sometimes will get places. So what you're going to do is say you have 8 kids, okay? And you have 2 smells, all right? Maybe you have 4 smells, but make it divisible by however many kids you have. So say 4 kids have a vanilla, okay? They're going to cover it up so nobody can see what they have, because that vanilla has that brown look to it. And then you're going to give the other 4 kids almond, but they don't know what each other has. So now what they have to do is they have to go around and they have to say, excuse me, can I smell you? Which is my favorite part, because I just think it's like funny to smell other people, you know? And so what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to find the friends that smell like them. Okay. So you'll end up with a bunch of friends that have almond extract and a bunch of friends that have vanilla extract, and hopefully using their sniffer, they can find each other. And so then you can use that as an activity to talk about, well, why would you want to have a group of friends? Like, what does that, if you were a bee, what does that do for you? And so for the case of pollinators, that tells us like, I can find my home because I can find my friends that smell like me, right? So for bees, they have a very particular scent that marks their colony. And so if you have all 8 of these beehives, you can't tell which one is yours. You can tell it from the pheromone, from that scent that's on there. You might say, well, you know, some smells like, you know, tell bees that we are running out of food and we need to go get more food. So you can kind of use this as a way to say different, you know, insects they can't talk to each other, but they can use smell as a form of communication. There's something else I was just about to tell you, but I forget what it is. And then if you have any kids that maybe couldn't identify their smell and couldn't find a friend, you can talk about that too, and say, you know, what if you are lost and you can't find your home? What are you going to do about it? And then like I know that you do when you have conversations with your kids, then expand it into their own world. So we were talking about finding our other bee friends, but why is it important to just, you know, have friends and family and community? So you can take it in all sorts of directions of wherever you want. But this is called Smell and Tell, and it's a lot of fun because you can smell each other. Okay. So if we were in person, I would also make you smell each other, and that is pretty fun for me to watch. Okay. So so now we're getting a little closer to thinking about are the habitat that we want to kind of create for our pollinators. And so in the chat box, I want, and I've got these tags. Let me actually bring it up so you can see the whole thing. So I've got these different tags: food, light, water, shelter, and space. And so I wonder if anyone wants to unmute or put in the chat box, where should I put some of these tags? Like, where might I put, I'm going to take the obvious one, my friends. I'm going to put water right on our water. Anybody want to talk about where I might put food or shelter or space? And this is where we're thinking, I should back up a little bit. We are assessing this landscape. I got you, Cassie, I beat you to it. We are assessing this space for suitability for pollinators. So is this, how suitable will we have pollinators come and live here? Because sorry about that. We know that pollinators need these things that all living things need, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to go out and identify where there might be food, shelter, space, light, water. Anybody? Trees can be shelter, absolutely. So, you know, when we used to have a lot of wild honeybees, we rarely will find wild colonies. They used to shelter in trees for sure. We have a lot of kind of those dead down trees that are beginning to rot or have old burrows in them. Those also will be nests for a lot of our native bees. Some trees will be a shelter for our butterflies. A lot of our butterflies like trees. Anybody else want to throw something out there? And I can duplicate these too. So if you want me to be like, hey, I know there might be shelter over here, wherever, just let me know. Sun provides light, absolutely. And so all of, especially things like honeybees, they use light as a navigational system. So where the sun is in location to like a food source, they can communicate that information to their other nest mates. If any of you were on this activity last year, we did the waggle dance and the round dance. And so they definitely need sun to navigate. I don't know how true that is for other bees or butterflies, but I do know they definitely need light to be able to see. Okay. Anybody else have some ideas they want to throw out? Where might I put the food? This is a big one. Where do you think food should go? Or is there no food here? In the ponds? Maybe if we had like some flowering plants in the pond. Can't really see very well on this picture. I know it's probably really small on your screen too. I was gonna try to make it bigger. A lot of these trees, when they are flowering, like if we've got some maple trees, it kind of looks like here. I'm not quite sure what some of these other ones are. Then when they're flowering, they are food. But I think that's also a gap that we can notice. Like it really doesn't look like there's a lot of food here right now. Maybe there's some food down here in the grass. It kind of looks like maybe there's some clover or something flowering. Your screen might be so tiny, so maybe you can't see it. But this is kind of the thing that I want you to do to your own garden outside your center. So do you have a suitable habitat for pollinators? And so what you can do is you can actually take these tags, you could take ribbons or whatever, and you can ask your kids to go out and try to identify these different elements in your landscape. So if you want to invite pollinators to your garden, do you have water? Do you have a space where they might have shelter? Do you have food? And food and shelter and water are some of the biggest things that we can do when we're talking about enhancing our landscape for pollinators. So a lot of you already are doing fruit and vegetable gardens, and we know that pollinators are needed for pollination so we can have the production of those fruits that we like to eat, like the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the watermelons, the strawberries that you mentioned. And so what would it look like to maybe enhance your landscape just a little bit, or you can create a brand new garden? That would be amazing. You know, I would love that. But one of the first things you can do is go out and see, what do you have already? Do you have native trees like maples that will have a bunch of flowers for bees early in the spring? And so this is kind of our next step, okay? So we're gonna try to do this, and we're gonna see how it works, okay? But I created a Jamboard, 3 different Jamboards, one for the coastal plain, for the Piedmont, and for the mountains. And I'm gonna have you guys make a copy of it and try to use it on your own. And what these different little, we'll go to the Jamboard in just a second, but they have, I think Mia or Sharonda sent out an email yesterday where I gave you a bunch of flashcards, some bee flashcards, and then also some butterfly plant flashcards. And so all of these different plants have some sort of feature that is good for bees, okay? They have different flowers, different flower shapes that attract different pollinators. And so and some information about how big they get, that may be a little more information than what we're doing today. But that it gives you an idea of how you can create your garden. So let's go here and let me go back and grab this link. Okay. And so what I want you guys to do is, when you get here, go up to these 3 vertical dots, okay? And click on the 3 vertical dots, and then come all the way down to this make a copy, okay? And when you do that, you will have your own copy that you can then manipulate and do. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. So make sure you come down and you make a copy. All right. In the meantime, though, I'm just going to delete this. So in the meantime, this looks like it might be overly complicated. So I would love your feedback on it. But what I want you to think about is, all right, what does my outdoor space look like? And maybe you even want to draw it. So come over here to the left, and maybe you kind of have like this rectangular space that is a space that you're thinking about to build your garden, okay? And you know that you want some shade. And so you're gonna maybe grab a couple of shade trees. Okay, these are little elements that are for shade, and you can duplicate them, remember, so you could have a bunch of trees. And then I want you to think about what trees might be appropriate to put into your garden. So over here, I'm gonna see, and you can make these bigger so you can see what they actually are. And so in this case, I have a tulip tree, tulip poplar. I know it's a big tree that has tons of flowers, and just a couple of weeks, these are going to be blooming. And these are something that bees in particularly love. Or look, maybe you already have a red maple. And so you can put that wherever it is in your garden, okay? So here's the next step. So we want to think about what kind of trees. We might want to think about what sort of shrubs we want. And so you can actually use these like little graphics if you want to kind of denote it. Yeah, and if you don't want to make a copy, you totally can come and move stuff around in this one too. And you can actually pop down and you can say duplicate. And then if you guys want to work on one of those, you can too. So the next thing I want you to think about when you're creating pollinator garden for your space is, not only are you thinking about things like height and width of your plants. So over here, these are, I didn't mark that, these are little perennials, but you also want to have blooms throughout the season. So you want to have spring blooming plants, summer blooming plants, fall blooming plants, so that you have a consistent source of food, right? We know that our maple trees, they're blooming right now, but they're not going to be blooming in, another couple of weeks, at least here in Raleigh. I don't know what it looks like in the mountains. And so you're going to then want to think, well, geez, I need some spring flowering plants. So let's put some, here, let me just send this one to the back. Send to the back. So then you're gonna come here and say, well, you know what? I really want some penstemon or beard tongue. And you can begin, if you want to, you can begin to design this however you want. So what I thought we could do is, let's see how our time is. What if you guys took 5 minutes and tried to move some of this stuff around? And I realize you don't have all of the information. Like, for example, this doesn't tell you when the tulip poplars are blooming and that sort of stuff. It's on the back of that card, and I didn't do the backs. But just try to see what you can do. So either make a copy for yourself, okay? Or if you don't want to do that, you can just come down and go here, and you're going to click again on these 3 vertical dots, and then you can duplicate and then just be like, hey, this is Sharonda's. I'm working on this one, okay? And so we've got some for the Piedmont. We've got one for the Piedmont, slightly different plants in our trees and shrubs and perennials. And then we've got one for the mountains. So you kind of see there's some things that are in the mountains that we tend not to grow very much in the Piedmont, like sourwood is a great example of that. Okay, you guys kind of get it. We'll sort of, maybe I can, let's see, it's 12:46. So what if we come back at 12:50? And then if anyone is willing to share, that would be awesome. I would love to see what you can do. Is 5 minutes too long? How about I check in with you at 3 minutes, okay? And I'll set a timer here. Let's see, timer. There we go. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna mute myself, have my smoothie, and watch you work. Okay, I said I would check in at about 3 minutes, and I wonder if this is working for anybody. Does anybody want to share? Do you need a few more minutes? All right. Well, hearing none, I'm gonna come back here, and I see that some of you have started to play around maybe with a little bit of stuff. And what the next thing that I kind of want to tell you is really sort of the last bit here, and then we can open it up for questions if you want. But so we have 3 different pollinator curriculum, all for elementary age. And so if you have any school age children programs, these would be easily utilized. But we have a lot of the activities that I think can be scaled and adapted for your early childhood children. And so Busy World of Bees is on native bees and honeybees. It's for first grade. We've got one also on native bees and honeybees for 4th grade, but there's a lot of good activities in there. And then we have another one that's targeted for 2nd grade, but definitely scalable down, that's on butterflies. And in particular, it has a project in there of raising painted lady butterflies. So in each of these curriculum, there is activities in there that really get your young people to think about how they could create a pollinator garden, or think about it as enhancing your landscape with pollinator plants. So for 1st grade, maybe what you do is you print those pictures out from the PDFs that Sharonda sent you, and you can have the kids just pick ones that they think are cool that they would want to put in their garden. And you can just kind of basically do like almost a felt board of like a collage of different cool things, like find one that's from spring, one from summer, one from fall, and let's create our garden. Or, you can begin to scale this up depending on where you're at, and then to actually plant a pollinator garden would be pretty cool. And some of the things you might grow already are already pollinator plants. If you grow any herbs like cilantro, dill, fennel, or parsley, those are plants that swallowtail caterpillars love. And so you're already starting to create a little pollinator habitat, as well as your flowering vegetables like your tomato flowers or your pea flowers, that kind of stuff. So anyway, so think about, what are these hands-on activities that you can be doing with your young people to get them comfortable, aware, and then stewards of pollinators. And so with that, I'm gonna wrap it up and ask if any of you guys have any questions. I'll stop sharing. And I'm glad to take any questions that you might have. And one last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in the chat box where you can find your local 4-H agent if you don't know them already. Okay? Would love any questions. All right, and here in the chat box.
Questions? In the chat box right now, Liz, Mia just put in the survey for everybody, or the evaluation. So if everybody can take some time to click over on that, and that will be how you receive your training certificates. And Liz has just also put in her information into the chat box as well. So, but if anyone has any questions about pollinators, now is a good time to ask.
And I will say, I know that bees can be scary, and most of them, almost all of them, are not going to sting you, right? If you're not bothering them, then they're not going to sting you. Our solitary bees rarely sting. Honeybees will maybe sting if they are guarding their territory. So I do just want to mention that.
Well, I know I enjoyed the activity with the, like you said, the nose drainer.
Booger sucker.
That was too cute. And the smoothie, because I love the fact that it was just, like you said, you just went into your refrigerator and you found what was left and just dumped it in there with some water. So that's the easiest thing for us to do with the children, and they can practice with their own cutting board and small knife as far as cutting those different fruit pieces and putting them into the blender. So that would be great for preschool age children, 3-year-olds. Yeah. Any questions? And before we go, we do want to, Mia did want to just touch base with everyone in regards to the links that we have for the Learning Burst. And I'll turn it over to Mia now.
Yeah, we just wanted to remind everybody quickly that so for each mini series, the Zoom link will be the same for all of the sessions. So we'll be logging on. So for example, for mini series 2, we'll be using the exact same Zoom link for both sessions that are part of that mini series. And you can always feel free to email me if anybody has issues getting on a Zoom link or finding a Zoom link. You can always email me and I can send it to you.
Thank you, Mia.
One thing can I mention, Sharonda, is I will follow up with you and Mia and all of the activities that we went through really fast. I will put them in PDFs and we can send those out too, as well as the slides.
Thank you so much, Liz. And Tanisha says that she can't wait to do the cotton ball activity. And as always, guys, when you do these different activities, please send us pictures of what's going on so we can put it out on Facebook, or you can even, go and try to post on Facebook as well with all these wonderful farm to ECE activities that you're doing within your centers and your communities. We would love to see this and love to see how it's transforming across the great state of North Carolina. So if you don't have any questions, please remember next Tuesday, we will have our fourth in the series, the gardening series, our fourth and last learning burst in the gardening series, and it will be on container gardening, and Ellie Snyder will be back with us to finish up that one. And then we will take a little break and then start again with a different series on our learning burst. So if everything is all good, I would just like to say thank you again, Liz, for everything as always. And we will send out all the information, and everybody to have just a great week.